Hi guys, welcome to another episode on Troubles Restoration. In this video, we're going to be stripping her fuel tank. And by stripping her fuel tank, I mean just taking her fuel tank out of her bonnet. I didn't think this was going to take very long. I was definitely proven wrong. I'm going to be timing actually how long it takes to get the fuel tank out. I'm pointing above my head because throughout the video, there's going to be a little kind of like stopwatch timer counting the hours. It is hours, not minutes. So yeah, get your best guesses in the comments below and let's see if any of you get close to how long it took me to get Trouble's fuel tank out. Ready, set, go. Hi guys, so today I think it's day 8 or it's day X, not sure, we'll be able to work out from the videos. But today we're going to be taking the contents of my bonnet, boot space, whatever you want to call it, I'm not sure what the technical term is for that kind of storage space on a Porsche. It's all very confusing with the engine being under the bonnet in other cars, and in this car it's under the boot. But yeah, so my boot space or bonnet space, we're going to be stripping that out today, taking the fuel tank out, taking out my heater hoses, taking out the heater and anything else that we find under there. So yeah, let's go. Right, before we get into it, this is what we're starting with under the bonnet. We obviously have the fuel tank, but there is also these heater hoses which go into these heater control boxes, a fresh air kind of inlet filter box, my fuse box up at the top right there, some more heater hoses that go to the ABER spasher, and then there would be a battery in that hole there. At some point, the battery box floor rusted through and my battery fell out of it. So one less thing I need to remove. I know my aim was to remove the fuel tank, but this paper heater hose went right over the fuel tank filler neck and was definitely going to be getting in the way. So I started with removing this paper hose. You'd have thought I'd been able to just pull the paper hose off, but it was in just as good a condition as the car and just snapped.
I think that might have been a mouse.
To get the rest of the paper hose off the control box, I just used a Stanley knife and put a small slit in it, which then allowed me to kind of peel it off the control box. I probably didn't need to do this as the hose was, free of the filler neck. But for completeness, I just wanted to get the hose completely off the control box. Considering this is just a paper hose and how quickly it ripped when I first tried to take it off, this little bit that was on the control box was seriously stubborn. The Stanley knife wasn't making any real progress and it took forever to get it off. If only the rest of the hose was as durable as this, I probably would have been able to just reuse it. I persevered with the Stanley knife and I eventually got the hose off. It actually turned out that it wasn't just a paper hose, it was actually an aluminium hose or similar with a paper outside. So it was no wonder I was struggling to cut through it with a Stanley knife. Anyway, with the fuel filler neck free, I was then pretty confident I would be able to remove the fuel tank. To remove the fuel tank, I thought it'd probably be a good place to start by removing all of the connections to it, such as the fuel pipe. On Trouble, this is connected to the tank via a fuel reserve switch or a fuel cock. This is circled in red in this exploded diagram. The fuel cock also has a control rod going to it so that you can switch it from inside the car. This is part number 27 in this exploded diagram. I thought that instead of taking both the fuel pipe and the control rod off the fuel switch, I would just undo the union holding the fuel cock to the tank, killing two birds with one stone.
So we're trying to take the fuel tank out, and under here, under the car, there is a little fuel filter, and I've just soaked in WD-40 a nut. You say it's a union?
Yeah, it's a union.
A union that is the feed of fuel from the tank, funnily enough, at the bottom of the tank. So we're going to get a spanner on there and try and undo it. It's all pretty cramped under the car, so probably not going to get much footage of this.
I wasn't wrong, I didn't get much footage of me trying to undo the union. What I didn't realise was the union that was holding it to the tank was actually a coupling nut or a barrel nut with both a left and right-handed thread. And unfortunately, it was put on opposite to the way I thought it was. So as I was trying to undo it, like you would undo a conventional nut, this was actually tightening up the assembly, pulling the fuel switch into the tank even harder. My fuel tank is pretty rare, being 70 litres instead of the standard 52 litres. So to make sure I didn't damage it, I gave up on undoing the fuel cock and instead just set to removing the fuel pipe from it and the fuel switch control rod. Getting the fuel pipe off was pretty easy, I just chopped it. Luckily no fuel came pissing out either. Getting the control rod out was also pretty easy. It was just held in with a single little split pin, but I just couldn't seem to be able to pull it out. I'm going to save you the pain of watching, but it took 21 minutes to finally get the split pin out.
What sort of clip is it?
It's a split pin.
Oh, it's a split pin.
With those connections finally free, I thought I was cooking with gas and just needed to undo the 4 clamping bolts that were holding the tank to the tank compartment floor. So we got cracking. With the bolts undone, I then disconnected the tank breather and the spade connectors to the fuel tank sender. When I say disconnected the spade connectors, what I really mean is break the wire off the connector, leaving the connector very much still on the spade. A problem for future Lawrence when I restore the tank and loom. With everything now undone, I then took off the filler cap, ready to remove the tank. But unknown to me at the time, I hadn't quite undone everything. Right, so we should be good to go. Hiding behind this heater control box were 4 more fixings which were clamping the filler neck, so off the control box came. To take this off, I first had to undo the cable clamps. One was clamping the cable wire itself and the other was clamping the cable housing. This is the tube which the cable runs through. With the clamps undone, I could then pull the cable out. All I now had to do was find the nut on the inside of the wheel arch that was holding this control box in place, and then disconnect it from its rubbers.
Trying to take some treacle out from under the wheel arch to get at some fittings.
Finding the nut was not easy, as it had been buried in undersill, along with 2 of the 4 fixings which were clamping the filler neck. My mum got under the wheel arch with her scrapers and started to unbury them. Once they were then accessible, I managed to remove the heater control box, giving me the access I needed to get at the last of the fuel tank fixings. 2 of the filler neck fixings were accessible from inside the bonnet, which made sense, and after soaking these in WD-40, they came undone pretty easily. Unfortunately, as mentioned, the other 2 were screwed in from underneath the front wing and not as easy to get to. Not only had they been covered in undersill, making it hard to get a socket on them, but they were also behind the filler neck, making it even more awkward. Why they weren't all put in from the inside of the bonnet, I don't know. To get to the last one, I used one of my favourite tools in the toolbox. It's a flexible extension. Using this mighty tool, I managed to undo the last self-tapper holding the filler neck in place, leaving me with undoing just a Jubilee type clip which fixed a sleeve to the fuel filler neck and the filler bowl. This clip just snapped, but I wasn't complaining, as by this point I was just over 4 hours into getting the fuel tank out. With the clip off, I was now definitely ready to take the fuel tank out. Okay, go again. Okay.
Oh, you got it out!
So the tank is...
Oh, you got a video?
Yeah, it's videoing. Mama, can you see what's going on under the wheel arch? Under there? Why it's stuck?
Oh, hang on, I need a
I
light.
think you're going to have to lift it
Have I
up.
got a light?
Remember the light we've been using? You know, the one with the open bulb? Well, my mum's just going to go get it to look under the wheel arch to see what the fuel filler neck was getting caught on. Once she got the light and could see what was going on, it turned out that the fuel filler neck was getting caught on the fuel filler kind of flap that protects the fender. So my dad quickly dispatched of this.
We do need to get this off. It won't come out with this on.
It's coming out!
Right, you can hold that up.
Right, you got to lift it up, Roz, at that end. Ready?
Right, hang on. We're up a bit.
Oh, switch this to that's me. This one.
It's fucking electric. Oh, there's fluid in it.
It's
Oh,
electric.
turn the light off, please.
So it turned out that the fuel tank actually wasn't empty, and I just poured fuel all over an exposed light bulb. It's just as well my mum had only just turned the thing on and it hadn't had time to heat up. This could have been an absolute disaster with trouble going up in flames. This is a real lesson to double check that your fuel tank is empty, and never use an exposed light bulb if you're working on something with flammable liquids like fuel.
Whoa, not sure what's
Whoa,
in
we
it.
got petrol.
Right, can we stuff a rag in the end of it?
Is it yellow one?
Oh, it stinks. Here you go, chuck that in it, it stinks.
Why isn't it coming out the bottom?
I don't know.
It's coming out the bottom
Why is it coming out the top?
because we tipped it
Okay,
up.
are you ready?
Right. Yeah. It's caught. You've got it too high.
I can't get it any lower.
Can you see the hole? Right? Yeah.
So you got it out.
Yes! One fuel tank. Again, look guys, listen.
Ah, vintage.
Why?
Got some free fuel.
We need something free.
It took me 4 hours and 15 minutes to take a fuel tank out. I'm definitely not going to be getting a job on one of the race teams at Le Mans. It took forever. We came into the garage when it was light, and when we came out of the garage, it was very, very dark. I was exhausted, and I nearly burnt the garage down, which wasn't so great. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed watching this episode on Troubles Restoration. If you did, don't forget to give it a like, and if you'd like to follow the rest of Troubles' journey back to the road, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.